people standing with me here know better than anybody else the devastating impact that gangs have on Orange County and on the whole Hudson Valley. And before I go any further, I want to say that Orange County law enforcement officials and the FBI have been doing a fantastic job locking up gang members in the region. They deserve our praise and thanks. This is an issue I've been interested in for a long time. I asked the FBI to come here, and they did, and our law enforcement is doing an excellent, excellent job. More people have been arrested, and we're going after the gangs. But unfortunately, there's more to be done. Gang violence is still happening, particularly in communities like Middletown and Newburgh. As much as communities and local federal officials like myself wish the Hudson Valley was immune from gang problems, sadly it isn't. And gang problems, if they're not dealt with strongly, effectively, and quickly, fester and grow and create problems in the community way beyond gangs. Now, in fact, drug dealing and gang violence, that's from my day, kind of hard. Drug dealing and gang violence ruin a resident's sense of safety and security in the Hudson Valley. And even if you live 10 miles away in a beautiful rural or suburban area, the fact that Middletown has gang violence or Newburgh gives your whole sense of being in a beautiful, safe, pacific, and serene place a sense of discombobulation, shall we say, a sense of unease. Now, luckily, thanks to the efforts of so many of the law enforcement folks, as well as our local officials here, we're making progress, and we're chipping away at the gang violence. And particularly if you look at arrests, it's great. So earlier this month, the Hudson Valley Safe Streets Task Force, which I helped set up a couple of years ago, composed of FBI, state, and local law enforcement, conducted a successful gang raid here in Middletown and in the town of Wallkill. They arrested 23 criminals on drugs and weapon charges, and the trials are set for coming months. It's a huge success. I applaud the efforts of everyone involved. And so far, the Safe Streets Gang Task Force has gotten 150 alleged gang members and drug dealers off the streets. That is a big deal, and that's important. However, law enforcement can't carry these cases across the finish line if they don't have the witnesses who saw the crimes committed able to testify. And typically what gangs do is they threaten and intimidate the witnesses so you can't go forward with a trial, and after the arrest the gang member goes free. This is typical of how gangs operate and avoid being snuffed out, as we hope to do here in the Hudson Valley. Testifying against a gang member often puts a bullseye on your back, and people are understandably afraid and reluctant to do it. Active gang members go to great lengths to prevent witnesses from testifying. You've seen it on the TV shows, if you watch Law and Order or Kojak, as I used to watch. Any of you remember Kojak? All you young people here? Hank does.
Absolutely.
Who was in it? Telly Savalas, the bald guy. Even you remember, huh? Yeah, very good. Watching the reruns, I suppose. It was in the 70s. Okay. Anyway, but it's real. Witness intimidation, as our law enforcement people here in the Hudson Valley will tell you, is a very, very real thing. So, we have to protect these people. These courageous people who are willing to come forward and testify to lock the gang members up so they no longer can create all the problems that they're creating here. I have a plan that would do just that. It is very hard for local law enforcement to protect witnesses. You often have to be there 24/7. You have to go with them as they go to the supermarket or pick up the kids from school or whatever else. It's an extremely expensive undertaking, and it's very hard for particularly smaller police forces to do any of this. You know, if you're in New York City, they probably have enough people to protect witnesses. If you're here in Middletown or Newburgh or even Orange County as a whole, you can't afford to have so many police officers and law enforcement officials spending all their time protecting a witness from intimidation. That's the problem. So this is an obvious place where the federal government can step in and help out. And that is what we're trying to do here, and I'm going to explain in detail. On February 9th, the Hudson Valley Safe Streets Task Force targeted alleged members of the 9 Trey set of Bloods. That's a national gang of Bloods, and resulted in the seizure of drugs, weapons, thousands of dollars in cash, heroin, semi-automatic pistol, HR revolver, and 100 rounds of ammunition. It was quite a haul. The task force was in search of 33 defendants with conspiracy to distribute narcotics, including heroin, that's how the gangs make their money, powdered and crack cocaine, marijuana, and 2 defendants also face weapons charges. The task force is still in search of 10 more of these criminals. But needless to say, arresting 23 of the targets in one morning is an incredible result. Of the charges that these 23 face, the drug charges, because it's a lot of drugs, carry a mandatory minimum of 10 years in prison, a maximum of life. So if these gang members are convicted, they're not going to be bothering us for a very long period of time. The appropriate sentencing, however, can't be based on a weak case, simply because fellow gang members are threatening and harming witnesses behind the scenes. So, we have legislation, Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania and I, called the State Witness Protection Act. And what it does is allow federal prosecutors to investigate and bring charges against those who commit witness intimidation. We obviously have federal officials here in terms of the FBI and the prosecutor's office. And witness intimidation in our bill is defined as any attempt to kill, use, or threaten physical force, harass, intimidate, or take action with the intent to keep witnesses off the witness stand. The bill also covers acts of retaliation after the witness testifies. Why do they do that after the testimony? So that someone else wouldn't testify. It sets tough new penalties for witness intimidation. It provides the same penalties that exist in federal court in the case of killing a witness, including a possible death sentence when it's appropriate. The maximum penalty is 30 years of imprisonment, a maximum of 20 years for types of witness intimidation that don't involve attempted murder. So it's a very tough proposal. It would beef up gang protections to ensure gang members still roaming the Hudson Valley streets can't intimidate witnesses. Thanks to the efforts, as I said. So, okay, let's see. Okay, so that's what we do. We have another proposal which also helps localities pay for their own versions of witness protection because it's expensive. And if you could do those 2 things, let the federal government go after witnesses that are intimidated and help our localities as they seek to protect witnesses, you can make sure that these criminals get a trial, go to jail, and don't bother us again. With that, you want to say something, Mayor?
Sure.
Great. Let me call on Mayor Stefano.
I wanted to say thank you to Senator Schumer not only for coming to our city today, but also addressing a very important issue, not only for Middletown, but for the entire region here, as this is our home, and gang violence knows no municipal boundary. And we've had some experiences lately in Middletown, and not only with the arrest, but some other issues that are where we're getting a focus on crime in the Middletown area. But a lot of these people that were arrested aren't from Middletown. Some were from as far away as Milford, Pennsylvania, upstate New York. And strong cases can become very weak cases if the witness program is not in place, if the witness doesn't become strong. And all of a sudden cases are becoming plea bargain, and 10 to life sentences become much shorter sentences without protection of the witness program. So I think it's very welcome legislation. The financial assistance that they'll be offering to a community is very important, but I think the penalties are probably the most important part of this legislation, and that we need federal assistance. You know, we're facing tax caps here in New York, and we all have priorities, and of course the protection of witnesses will be important, but we also have to balance some of our needs, our financial needs, with our community resources, and some of them are very limited. So I welcome the legislation. I fully support the senator's efforts in this area, and hopefully it'll be very successful. And in regards to the specific, the recent scoop up of the 33 people, or the 33 indictments, I think it'll go a long way to putting most of those people, if not all those people, in jail for a very, very long time and improving the quality of life, not only in Middletown, but in the Hudson Valley. So thank you very much, Senator.
Thanks, Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Representing Ed Diana is our Deputy County Executive.
Thank you, Senator. Senator knows I've been in law enforcement 28 years and now 8 years with the county. Having the privilege to be the major right here in Troop F, I can personally attest to the Senator's long stance on helping local law enforcement and putting this State Witness Protection Act will go a long way in helping the local FBI and the local state police and the local city police help combat crime and this drug violence and gang violence. On behalf of the county exec, and I want to congratulate the U.S. Attorney's Office from the Southern District. They certainly know that we're an integral part of their area. Like I said, the local FBI is continuing to do a great job, and we appreciate all their efforts. But sincerely, thank you, Senator, for bringing this act to law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and let me just make two other points. One, I called for the task force to come here and the FBI to come here a couple of years ago, and it's been a huge success. And I too want to thank our federal officials, our FBI, our U.S. Attorney, and everybody else for focusing on Hudson Valley gang violence. It's gone better than we ever expected. Second, I want to follow up on the mayor's point. Imagine being a police chief and you have, say, 20 men and women on duty. To take 2 of them off and have them protect a witness every shift is a huge burden. And that's why we need the feds to take over part of this burden, because our local police forces really can't, they just don't have the resources to do it. The federal government does. Okay, with that, I'm ready for your questions. We'll take them first on this subject and then on other subjects.
Senator, you talk to any police officer anywhere in the area, and they'll tell you that for every bad guy you take off the street in a gang, a drug, there's 2 or 3 behind them.
Yep.
And they'll all tell you it's an uphill battle. So
it is an uphill battle, but we've made progress, and I think if you ask both the residents and elected officials of Newburgh, Middletown, and the rest of Orange County, they will say that we've made good progress. And it's a fight that we will keep on keeping on until we get this solved. And we will get it solved. If gangs know the heat is on, they at the very minimum, hopefully they disband, but at the very minimum they go somewhere else, hopefully across state lines.
What distinguishes this from the existing witness tampering under federal law?
It's much tougher penalties, and it gives the federal agents much more latitude in what they can do. Plus, there's assistance. There's the other part of our legislation is actual assistance to the localities when they have to do witness protection. If it's a state or local, it's a state indictment.
What would the potential cost be if this does not?
Well, it depends on, obviously we'd use our federal officials just to stretch a little further, so that's easy. And how much would the localities get? Well, it depends on how many witnesses they need to protect. But it's not very expensive in the grand scheme of things to arrest and stop the kinds of cost that gang violence costs us, not only here in the Hudson Valley, but throughout New York and throughout the U.S.
So would this measure not only provide funds, but also, for instance, FBI agents to guard witnesses?
If the federal government would have the ability to do it if it's a joint indictment, funds if it's not.